Hello. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm so excited to be here following that incredible session from the Sacred Headwaters Alliance. So let's just check if this deck is working. Yep. So welcome, fellow ancestors. My hope is by the end of our time together today, you will feel more like an ancestor than you did at the start. Before we dive into the practice of being a better ancestor, I wanted to share a little bit about my journey into this space and a bit more about the work that we do. So I'm the director of the Long Time Project. And all of our work is about helping us be better ancestors as individuals, as institutions, and as societies. So the way that I got into this was via this little person, my nephew, Finn. Now, when this photo was taken, he was 2. Now he is 11 and obsessed by Minecraft. But back then, he was 2 and obsessed by doors. Like any kind of doors, kitchen doors, shower doors, bathroom doors, car doors. And the reason I'm telling you this is because I was looking after him one day and he was playing with a really big door. And I didn't think anything of it because, you know, the door obsession. And while he was playing with this door, I was reading an article about climate change. It was one of those articles that I'm sure all of us will have read with terrifying statistics about the end of this century. I hear a noise, I look up, and I see my tiny nephew is about to pull this massive cupboard down on him. So I throw down the article, I run over, I push the cupboard up, I scoop him up. He starts crying at the injustice of being taken away from the best game in the universe. And to both of our surprises, I start crying too. Because suddenly, in that moment, I realized that the world I was reading about was a world I'd likely be alive in, and that I was not going to be there to scoop him up from danger. Now, I'd already been working on climate for about 15 years at that point, but something happened in that moment. I now know what happened was a moment of profound intergenerational empathy. Something that will be much more familiar to people from cultures who we've just heard about. But for me, it was new. And it was so profound that I wanted to see what would happen for others when they started experiencing it. And so our work at the Long Time Project was born. And so to kind of quickly run through what the work looks like, some of that work is around working with governments. Helping people working in institutions to shift them so that those institutions can be better ancestors. Some of that work is around building this field. There's loads of us in this space now. How can we connect the people doing this work? How can we create global movements of people who want us to be better ancestors? Part of the work is about working directly with art and culture. Harnessing the power of the things that shift our emotions to shift our collective trajectories. And part of that work is the podcast that we have, which, as you can see, features a huge amount of practitioners, but also features practice, because as we heard in the last session, so much of this work is about what happens inside of us. It is about connecting our emotions to the structures that we live in. So that is a bit more about our work. I'm going to stop talking about that now and dive into this question of what it means to be a good ancestor. But if you want to find out more, you can listen to our podcast. So why is this question so important? On one level, I think as a room, you don't need me to explain why it matters that we're good ancestors right now. As I started working in this space, one of the things that was so shocking to realize was that as a species, over the last 100 years, we have become excellent at devising new ways of destroying ourselves. that previously, throughout all of human history, whilst we have been capable of great violence and cruelty at scale, that had never threatened our existence as a species. And now, with biodiversity loss, human-induced climate change, pandemics, unchecked AI, biological warfare, I could keep going on, we have become very good at cultivating the means to wipe ourselves out. So I find this image really helpful in representing the responsibility that all of us in this room right now hold in our hands. So in the middle, we see the small green circle that represents all of us alive in this moment, all 0.81 billion of us sharing this moment of life on Earth. Behind us, we see all of those humans who have lived in the past 20,000 years, all 100 billion of us. And then, in the orange circle, we see all of the potential lives that could come in the next 20,000 years, all 6.75 trillion lives. And that's just human life. Imagine how massive that orange circle would be if it was all life on Earth. And right now, those of us alive hold responsibility for the fate of those trillions of lives in our hands. The kinds of lives they'll have, and ultimately whether they get to have a life at all, is on us. And so that is why this question of what it means to be a good ancestor is so important. And this question is clearly a question of justice. Because when it comes to any of those disasters, any of those challenges that I described before, this statement is true, that the people who contributed the least to the problem will suffer the most from the extreme outcomes. So this question of being a good ancestor, at the heart of this question is justice. Now, we are not alone in this work, obviously. This is a movement that is spanning sectors across society. We're seeing it happening in government. In Wales, we've got the groundbreaking Wellbeing of Future Generations Act. For the first time in the world, a government legislated to take future generations into account in all planning across public bodies. We're seeing it happening in the courts, with increasing cases being taken on behalf of future generations, and those cases being more successful as time goes by. We're seeing it happening in finance with things like the Good Ancestor movement. So there's a whole movement happening here. And of course, we're also seeing future generations themselves leading. We're seeing them stepping into the fore, having to do things that, quite frankly, children and young people should not have to be doing. So what we're going to spend the rest of our time together doing is exploring what it means to be a good ancestor for each of us. And we're going to do that through doing time differently. So at the Long Time Project, we think that it is short-termism, it is the way we do time that is a big part of the problem. And so that if we want to develop systems that support life in the long term, we need to change how we do time. And so, pre-lunch, we are going to do a HIIT workout in this room together. So it's good we've got lots of space. There are going to be less burpees and jumping jacks than you'd normally have in a HIIT workout. In fact, there are going to be no burpees and jumping jacks, because this is a high-intensity time workout that we're going to do. But similar to a normal HIIT workout, it is a workout of circuits. And so the first circuit that we are going to do is a circuit that is about human time. And so we're going to be exercising our imaginations and our minds for this. And to do this, I invite you to close your eyes. We're going to be taking 6 or 7 minutes in a reflection together. So close your eyes. Take a moment to get comfortable in your seat. Feel the support of the ground underneath you and the space of the air above your head. And take a moment to inhabit this moment. Now, I invite you to bring to mind an older person that you've cared about. It could be a grandparent, a great aunt or uncle, or someone of that generation. They may or may not still be with us. And when you're thinking of them, think of a quality that they had that evokes warmth for you. It could be a funny habit, their smile, something that made them laugh, a quality that they had that evokes warmth for you. Now, in your mind's eye, step back one step, and you're stepping backwards in time to this person's 40th birthday. Take a moment to connect with that quality that evokes warmth in you. Can you see it in them at 40? Now, in your mind's eye, step backwards one more step, and you're arriving at their 9th birthday party. Again, connect with that quality that evokes warmth in you. How is it present in them at 9? Take a moment to be in the party. Where in the world is it happening? When is it happening? Maybe it's around the 1920s, 1930s, maybe a bit earlier, maybe a bit later. Take a moment to go and look out the window. What was the world like back then? What can you see? You hear a noise, it brings you back into the party. You look at this person as a 9-year-old celebrating, and you take your leave of them. And in your mind's eye, you step forward one step and forward another step through the generations to arrive back at this moment, to arrive back in 2024. Let the image of that older person fade from your mind's eye. Again, feel the support of the earth beneath your feet. And now bring to mind a young person that you care about, a child. It could be your own child, a grandchild, a niece, nephew, the children of friends, a little person that you care about. And again, connect with a quality that they have that evokes warmth for you. It could be a funny habit, it could be a smile, something that makes them laugh, a quality they have that evokes warmth. And now in your mind's eye, step forward. And you're stepping forward through the generations to this person at 40. Take a brief moment to connect with them at 40. How is this quality that evokes warmth for you present in them at 40? And now step forward one final step to this person's 90th birthday. Again, connect with that quality that evokes warmth for you. How is it present in them at 90? Is their smile still the same? Do they still have that funny habit? How has their life been? Who might be there celebrating with them? Take a moment to be in the warmth of this party. When is this party happening? It's likely to be the end of the century, the beginning of the next one. Maybe a bit earlier, maybe a bit later. For a moment, you walk over to a window and look outside. What's the world like then? What's the world like at the end of the century? What can you see? You hear a noise, and the person who's celebrating their 90th birthday is tapping their glass and asking for everyone's attention. And then you notice that there's a photo of you in the middle of the table. And the person celebrating their birthday is asking everyone to raise their glasses to you, to thank you for something that you've done that's made their world a better place. What are they toasting you for? What is your legacy for future generations? Take a few breaths to connect with your legacy. And now it's time to take your leave. So say your goodbyes, and in your mind's eye, step back one step through the generations and another to arrive back in this moment, to arrive back in June 2024. Let the image of the person fade from your mind's eye. Take a moment to again connect with the ground under your feet and the air above your head. And fully occupy this unique space between earth and sky that you occupy for the unique amount of time that you will occupy it. And when you're ready, blink your eyes open and arrive back together in the room. So, you've just time traveled across a couple of 100 years, perhaps across around 7 generations. Give yourself some breaths to adjust. Normally when I'm doing this, so I do this whenever I'm working with anyone, we do this process. So I've done it with thousands of civil servants, I've done it with artists, I've done it with groups of leaders. And one of the things we find is that people have very different emotions and very different visions. So I invite you to be present with whatever came up for you, to be present with any questions that came up for you from that process, and to be patient with those questions. The question of what our legacy for future generations are is a big one. It might not be that you had a clear answer today, and in some ways it is the question that so many of us are living. So, what we experienced there was a human timescale. We call it human because it spans the stretches of generations that as humans our lives touch. Our grandparents through to our great-grandparents, perhaps our grandchildren through to our great-grandchildren, whether we have children or not. The next time frame we're going to be working with is geological. So if that was human, we are now going to go way, way back. Geological time is often represented with images like this, which I find impossible to get my head around. So I've always found geological time challenging. I can't really do eras and eons. I get them muddled up. And for a long time, I just didn't engage with the deep history of our planet. But the more time I have spent in deep time, the more profound I find it. And for me, one of the big lessons that deep time can teach us is just how improbable life on Earth is. The more you hang out in our deep history, the more you realize that life on Earth really shouldn't be. At so many moments, the odds are against it. And I'm going to illustrate that using just one moment from our deep history. So this picture of space snooker is a representation of something that happened when our planet was just a baby. It happened very much in the early days of Earth. And what you see is a moment when a planet called Theia crashed into Earth. And in that moment, there was a massive explosion. A huge amount of debris came out, and the two planets combined. So Theia and Earth became one. The debris circled round Earth for a while, we don't know how long, maybe about 1,000 years, and slowly congealed together to form a new planet, an orb that we see every night, our moon. Now, that moon has become so important for the development of complex life on Earth. If we didn't have the moon, we wouldn't have stability. So our new moon stabilized our planet. We were kind of rolling round drunkenly. Days were incredibly short and unpredictable. There was no way that that planet could have supported life on Earth. And when I learn about this, I just start thinking, well, what if Theia had hit us at a different angle? What if Theia had been a bit bigger? It would have destroyed us. What if it had been a bit smaller? We might not have had enough debris to form the moon. What if it hadn't hit us at all? This completely random incident, billions of years ago, was essential for life on Earth. And this is just one incident. I could literally be here all day going back through our deep history, looking at incident after incident where we see how random and improbable the incredible web of life we have today on Earth is. And so this makes me experience this sense of enchantment that Brian Eno talks about here, when he says, perhaps we need to become re-enchanted by the amazing improbability of life. So for me, that's what hanging out in deep time can do. It gives me both a sense of reverence and rage. Rage that in a short amount of time, a tiny group of people can destroy billions of years of the most improbable evolution. And I figure that reverence and rage is probably quite a useful combination of emotions to have to drive us in this moment. So, we have done human time. We have done geological time. We're now going to do civilizational time. Now, as it says on the tin, this is the time frame of our civilizations. And there are many reasons why it is useful to get civilizational if we want to be better ancestors. It is useful because if we don't get civilizational, we can mistake what is happening to us in our societies and cultures as being about something universal to what it means to be human. So many of you will have heard of the Anthropocene as an idea. It's this idea, this geological term that refers to the fact that as humans we are now having this huge influence on the geology of our world. So the word obviously comes from anthro, human, man, and it suggests that it is all humans. It is in something inherently human to destroy the earth. So you see headlines like the two up here. Could humans really destroy all life on Earth? The seemingly insatiable human tendency to consume. Now, as we just heard from our brothers and sisters at the Sacred Headwaters Alliance, it is certainly not all humans who are responsible for this. Instead, it is a particular civilization, a particular culture. And so it's so important that we get civilizational about what we're experiencing, because if we don't, we're liable to think that it is our species, not our systems, that is the root of the problem. And if we want to shift, it is our systems that we have to shift. And if we keep telling ourselves a story that as humans we are inherently destructive, how on earth are we going to step into what this moment requires of us? So this crazy diagram is a diagram that shows one way of thinking about shifting systems. And the work of shifting systems is partly about shifting the dominant destructive system, hospicing that system, and partly about supporting the emerging systems that we need. Now, the dominant system gains a lot of its power from the fact that it feels natural. It feels like it's been here forever. Like we look at our economy, we look at our politics, and it might feel like, well, it's just always been like this. It can't be different. These systems drop from the sky. But when we inhabit civilizational timeframes, we can look back through history and understand that no, these systems we live in did not drop from the sky. They were made by humans. They were made by humans like us, and we can make better systems. So that's why it is important to get civilizational. So, what have we done? We've done human time, we've done deep time, we've done civilizational time. We are now going to do horizontal time. So if we want to be better ancestors, that involves us being connected with the people we share this moment of life on Earth with. Not just the people, all the species we share this life on Earth with. So, for those of you who were here yesterday, I imagine it was a really, really hot day, right? We were having this heat wave in London. Meanwhile, in India, they are having a heat wave where we are seeing temperatures of 52 degrees. I saw this tweet a couple of days ago from an Indian journalist. I won't read it, but you can see what she describes, struggling to breathe in the thick, scalding air. That what we're talking about now is happening. When we're talking about climate justice, it's happening right now. And what is so important is that for those of us who have the privilege of living in the global north, we develop ways of being able to inhabit the times and the lives of the people we share this moment with. And that's why any conversation about future generations obviously is a conversation about climate justice, it's a conversation about loss and damage, about climate finance. The two cannot be separated. Earlier in this year, I was invited to talk at a conference about climate justice. And my friend, Teresa got in touch with me with this quote. And I think that really perfectly sums up why any conversation about future generations also has to be a conversation about current generations. And if we are serious about thinking about climate justice and what it means to be a good ancestor, then we have to talk about what is happening in Gaza in the same breath as we're talking about climate justice. So this is an image from Dubai, from COP, where we saw so many climate activists come together to call for ceasefire. Now, there are many reasons why all of us who care so desperately about the future of the planet need to be caring about what is happening right now in Gaza. We need to care on a basic level of shared humanity at the absolute devastation and level of human suffering happening there. We need to care about that just because that is happening to other humans, to other innocent people. The president of Colombia has said, what we're seeing in Gaza is likely a rehearsal of the future, the way that rich countries and elites are clubbing together is what we will likely see in the face of the huge climate migration that is coming. So the devastation that we're seeing there is not the last of that kind of devastation that we are going to see unless we have huge solidarity across the world. So we need to care about it on that level. We need to care about it because of the role of energy politics in driving what is happening there. But we also really need to care about it because of the impunity of Israel on an international stage. Like, all of us working for the future of this planet knows that we are going to need multilateral institutions, we are going to need international law if we are going to have a hope of transitioning to the world, to a life-giving world. And right now, the attitude of Israel and its allies is burning multilateralism in ways that we have yet to understand. And so that's why whenever I come into any space that's around climate justice, it feels so important to bring Gaza in because of what's happening in Gaza and because of what it means for all of our futures. But the final reason that what is happening in Gaza really matters is because of the new forms of global solidarity that are forming, the new movements, the radical courage we're seeing from people all over the world. So, yeah, ceasefire now. So, all of this is quite a lot. And for any of us who have been working on these issues for a long time, it can get overwhelming. And so I thought I would end by introducing this idea of cathedral time. So it's an idea that comes from those medieval cathedrals that took many centuries to build. Places like Milan, Cologne, buildings that took 500-600 years to make. The people who laid the first stones knew they'd never be alive to see its completion. And cathedral time invites us to step into this perspective. It invites us to see ourselves as lineages of change makers. It invites us to acknowledge that we are going to pass the baton on to colleagues who have not yet been born. We are involved in issues, in battles, in work that are bigger than our lifetimes. And so we've put together a list of legacy questions to help you use cathedral thinking in what you do. They're questions that invite you to think about your professional ancestors. Whose shoulders are you standing on? What have they left you? What have they given you? It invites you to think about those unborn colleagues. What is it you'd like to leave to them? What is it you'd like to give them that will help their work? And what does holding this perspective open up for you? So, we have finished our HIIT workout, just about. And before we end, as with any good workout, there is a cool down. And I thought as part of this cool down, I would leave you with these words, because the ideas that I am talking about today are not new ideas. They are ideas that our brothers and sisters from the Sacred Headwaters Alliance have been at the heart of their societies for millennia. And the great law of the Iroquois Confederacy puts these ideas so beautifully, that we need to look and listen for the welfare of the whole people, even those whose faces are yet beneath the surface, the unborn of the future nation. And so I invite you in the days that follow, in the months that follow, in the years that make up your lives, to really step into this question of what does it mean for you to be a good ancestor? Thank you.